The U.S. military will boost its efforts to help Iraqi forces confront Islamic State militants in the coming weeks. The Pentagon said it would deploy 1,500 more troops to the country and will establish sites to train a dozen Iraqi military brigades. In a statement, the Pentagon said all U.S. forces will be in non-combat roles.
50,000 soldiers make for a potent fighting force by anyone's estimation. Used correctly, they may be able to turn the tide of battle. However, when there are 50,000 soldiers on the payroll, some of that being paid by American tax dollars, and they are more closely related to Casper than Rambo, that's where the outrage begins. Let's welcome to MidPoint, retired from the United States Army at the rank of Major General, currently Military Committee Chairman for the Center for Security Policy, and also co-author of the book Endgame, The Blueprint for Victory in the War on Terror. Paul Vallely joins us. General, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Ed.
Here we have this report that comes out, the Prime Minister saying the Iraqi army has 50,000 ghost soldiers being paid. It is costing millions and perhaps even billions of dollars. What are we supposed to take then from an Iraqi military that we and the American public were under the impression was at least getting close to being able to take care of itself militarily?
Well, for the most part, Ed, it's an inept force. It's fallen apart, doesn't have good leadership at the top or at the NCO ranks where they need the fighting forces to be most effective. We should be supporting the Peshmerga up in Kurdistan where they really know how to fight. But this hollowed out Iraqi force, except for some of the special operating forces that we've trained there, are very ineffective. And they just don't have that strong leadership it takes to be in combat.
You use the word inept. Is it fair to say that that ineptness began when the country fell, when America moved in and took Saddam Hussein out, or has it always been inept?
Well, actually, it wasn't too bad a force under Saddam. When they invaded Kuwait, they're pretty effective, of course. They still have the weaknesses that are repeated here today, and that's the ineffectiveness of their what we call mid-level leadership, and a lot of generals and senior colonels that really don't know how to take the battle to the enemy. And so with that, you've had a purge of a lot of the Sunnis leadership that was better than the Shias, and of course you have the Shia-driven government. So what you have in the end is a very weak, corrupt, and inept force that can't take the battle to the enemy.
Is it worth it then to say that with this inept force, that simply put, they can't take care of themselves militarily? No matter how much money we throw at them, no matter how much training we throw at them, it won't make one bit of difference. If we go 1 year from today, at the rate we're going right now, this will still be a completely useless military.
Well, I think for the most part it will be, and they will take their best forces, Ed, to protect Baghdad area, which is the center of activity for Iraq. But like I said before, we need to have special operating forces, air power supporting the Peshmerga in the north, who can really do an effective job in fighting. And so until we can do that, I don't see any improvement over there at all. And ISIS, as you can see, continues to be strong. They continue to attack. They just killed a number of Iraqis on the border. And so they're continuing the expansion of the caliphate and that area. They are going to continue to purge. Look in the future at the Jordanian border, which is going to be a very big target for them. So it's important that we have a better strategy and better leadership than we do right now to guide us in the future over there.
What you mentioned was Islamic State fighters killing 16 Iraqi soldiers in an attack on a western border crossing with Syria. That happened today. About 30 seconds I have before we break. Are you buoyed at all by the fact that U.S. and Turkey are reportedly close to a joint agreement on a joint mission against ISIS?
Well, I think Turkey's being pressured into it. Of course, we have the air bases there in Adana, Incirlik, where I've been into and have visited and actually have flown out of there several different times. But I think the pressure's on Turkey to get in there and support the forces to eliminate and terminate the effectiveness of the ISIS forces, particularly in Syria, northern Syria, and northern Iraq. And it's Turkey's best interest to do this because they're going to continue to romp all over that area until they expand that caliphate and control more area.
All right, Major General, please stand by. Major General Paul Vallely is with us again on the other side of the break. We dig deeper into the latest Benghazi findings. And at 51 minutes after the hour, the greatest lie being kept alive by the press in the Ferguson case. It's on MidPoint. Let's welcome back to MidPoint, retired from the United States Army at the rank of Major General, veteran military analyst, former Deputy Commanding General for the Pacific Command, Paul Vallely. Major General, let's turn to Benghazi, if we will. I have two columns sitting in my hand here after the most recent Republican report came out on Benghazi. One here says that members of the party have made Benghazi, the disaster, even more difficult to comprehend by advancing a series of bizarre conspiracy theories intended to besmirch the Obama administration. But here's another. America's Benghazi tragedy had to be a terrorist attack from the get-go. Please, Major General, help us make some sense of this all. What's the reality, in your opinion, of Benghazi? Is it a waste, or do we continue to move forward?
Ed, we have to continue to move forward. And as you may know, I'm a member of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, which is made up of a number of senior retired generals and admirals, the CIA, Defense Department officials, and some very, very smart lawyers. And we've completely debunked that House Intelligence report that came out by Mike Rogers and Dutch Ruppersberger. You know, it appears to be a complete whitewash of the CIA as well as the State Department and the complicity of the Obama administration in the cover-up. So we've got to press forward, get to the truth. Trey Gowdy evidently will start conducting his hearings again probably in the next week or 10 days, which will be the second hearing that he's had.
What is there left to find when you look at all the various things that were discovered in this recent report and then basically said it never happened? So if we're going to go forward here, in your opinion, your commission, your group, what is the one thing that we must push forward on and that answers are still not forthcoming on?
Well, I mean, there's three parts to the whole thing, Ed. It's the before the attack, during the attack, and after the attack, the lies and deceptions that have been put out there by members of the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, Leon Panetta, General Dempsey, when they said we didn't have the assets in the area to even conduct a rescue operation, when in fact we did, and we've interrogated and interviewed many witnesses who were active duty members in the Mediterranean at that time. So the truth has not come out yet, and that's why Trey Gowdy must get to the truth and explain to the American people what were the failures throughout those three phases that I just talked about.
When you hear reporters and when you hear...
We have the witnesses to validate it.
Okay, when you hear columnists such as Michael Cohen in the Boston Globe saying that they, meaning Republicans and people who push this, owe Americans an apology about Benghazi, how angry does that make you?
Well, it makes me very angry. You know, if you read the book 13 Hours, when you had the contractors there at the annex validating that they did get some don't move forward, stand down order, it makes all of us angry because no rescue operation was even attempted. So that it probably incites me and the other retired military more than any. We never let anybody on the battlefield, or we never let anybody in harm's way, including State Department and other Americans, and that's what we're most upset about.
General, I have a couple of minutes left. Let me turn to the Secretary of Defense. Chuck Hagel is out. He's staying, though, until they find someone else. No one wants the job yet, and there's a thinking going around Washington that no one would want it because they're only going to be there for a year, a couple of years maybe, and then they're going to be bounced out, so why would they want to take the job? My question is, where do we then go for leadership in what seems to be a very serious military vacuum?
Well, I mean, it's a tragedy what's happened in the Defense Department, of course, with policy and the strategy of dealing with the Middle East and ISIS and so on, and the lack of the ability of the national security team in the White House. And we know Valerie Jarrett's driving a lot of this stuff that Obama does in regards to national security. And then you have an inept Susan Rice that should not be in that position. So it's very frustrating to the senior military leaders and senior defense officials over there to have a strategy that will actually work today and can be executed with an end game of victory. Now, there are some very I would say, competent people that are retired that could take that job. I know Admiral Ace Lyons would just be superb as the Secretary of Defense, but even these people aren't going to volunteer to step forward and be considered because of this estrangement between the White House and the Defense Department. They have to be a team to provide national security to America, and there's no teamwork there right now.
Only got about 10 seconds left. Would it be your opinion then that what the president really wants here is nothing more than sycophants around him?
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what he has. And they basically have gutted the military in many different ways, Ed. And so the morale is very bad within our armed forces today. And as I've said before, I had an epiphany. I would not shed another ounce of American blood in the Middle East until we have the leadership that can lead us to victory and to protect and secure America and our forces. I just would not do it.
And that is going to be all the time we have. The book, once again, is Endgame. The author, the co-author, is Major General Paul Vallely. Major General, thank you so much. We'll talk again.
Okay, Ed, thanks.
And MidPoint continues.